Oh, he usually gets all the
Some of the state organizations like ordinances or resolutions attached to the last version.
They were talking a lot this morning. They didn't come in. And then I cried because I'm emotional pregnant. I was really crying. And I was like, how does sitting hurt? That's like, it's okay. I'm like, I'm so sorry.
Put your fidelity up in the stand.
Just stay up. I don't, he doesn't get to share me.
You need a minute, Stan. Whenever you want to go. We're going, man. We're going. Okay. Let's everybody stand for pledge allegiance and prayer, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Walden, would you ask the blessing?
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this evening. And Father, we just continue to ask for your guidance, protection, and direction in all aspects of our lives. Father, we thank you for the safety thus far regarding the COVID-19 virus here in Dane County, and just pray that you continue to bless us as you see fit. And Father, we ask that you guide and direct this meeting this evening. Pray that everything we say and do will honor you. Pray this in your name. Amen. Amen.
Thank you, sir. Roll call. Alderman James. Present. Alderman Nash. Here. Alderman Hinderleiter.
Here.
Alderman Steelman.
Here.
I am present. City Administrator Walden.
Present.
City Clerk Capel.
Present.
City Attorney Weber.
Present.
Public Works Director Nash. Present. Chief of Police Chase. Present. Economic Development Director Burbridge.
You were muted, Sally.
Okay. And Parks and Recs Director Du Bois.
Here.
All right. The first item on the agenda is going to be under bids. We have no hearing of persons. Be roof for the city administrative building. And Mr. Nash, would you care to share those bids, please?
Y'all have three bids dealing with the roof. One of them is from Mr. Woods, $10,830. We have one from Wisdom Roofing for $12,629. We have one from Tarantos Roofing Company for $12,940. There's only a few differences. All three of the bids, they will put 6 nails per shingle. On the Woods bid, he has a 1-year labor guarantee. Mr. Woods has a 4-year workmanship guarantee, and Mr. Frantos has a 2-year labor warranty on his. The only other difference that I've been able to really tell on these is Mr. Frantos would put rubber in the valleys. We don't have any. There's no vents in that roof or anywhere. And they all three said that that's part of the problem that we have with our shingles, what they've done. So all three of them have bid to put a roof vent across at the top. But they said that there was no ventilation for that roof. That's what's caused a lot of the issue with the shipping, so they've all three bid that.
That's inclusive, right?
Sorry?
That's inclusive of everything.
Yes. And they'll do a roof vent off the bid.
Are they all of the architectural cheap?
Yes. I think, let's see, I don't know where Wisdom gets their shingles. I think, Mr. Woods gets his local, and I believe Mr. Franto said he got his from Meeks, if I remember correctly.
The warranties on the shingles themselves.
They're all 30-year warranties. They're all-
Make a motion, we go with Mr. Woods. He is local and he is the lowest.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Second? Just a second.
Yeah, second, sorry.
Any discussion? I do have one question. It seems like if memory serves me correct, we had approved a bid for Mr. Wood to do a roof prior to at the park, and that never got finished. There was an issue, I'm sorry, not at the park, at the Al Brown concession stand. This has been a few years back. And there was an issue and that never got done. Do we have any ideas?
There was a question at that time about prevailing wage,
Okay.
so that got next.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for the bid. Alderman Nash?
Yes.
Alderman Steelman? Alderman James? Yes. Alderman Pingelite?
Yes.
The next item is going to be fireworks bids. Mr. Walden, would you like to present those bids, please?
We ran advertisements in the paper, and interested parties could request copies of the specs. In addition, we emailed those out to parties that had requested copies to do so. We had 2 responses, which are in your packet. One received by the posted deadline from Fleetwood Pyrotechnics for $12,524, and the other one was received after the deadline from Washington Way Fireworks. Is that for $16,000? You have a copy of both bids, what they reflected. Given one was received in time, and for the dollar difference, it'd be staff recommendation, unless you decide otherwise, to award it to Fleetwood Pyrotechnics.
Do we have a motion on staff recommendation?
Make a motion, we approve for Fleetwood. For discussion.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
I'll second. Is there anything mentioned by either party about like if things are not back to normal and we can't do large gatherings, we commit to this?
One year we had an issue where it was dry that summer, and statewide there was a lot of fireworks displays that were canceled, as was ours, and we stored our fireworks, for a year. There's steps you can do to store them and to still shoot them the following year. And Mayor can probably better speak to the current thoughts on, the stay at home being lifted, or where we're at in that regard.
Yeah, I'm not as worried about, I think from what I've seen, stay at home corner might be limited, but as far as like large gatherings, I might not go back to normal right away. So that's my concern.
If, let's say we can't shoot them off this year, but we purchased the fireworks, is this price included, do they set them off for us?
Yes,
So,
it's fireworks plus labor to shoot them.
okay, so we may just, I guess that's my question, would they take the labor cost off if we don't have a show this year and we would just pay labor next year with the fireworks we purchased?
Either that or they're committing to shoot them next, but,
Do you know
right.
what I'm saying? I don't wanna pay twice for labor if we don't get to have it this
Sure.
year. Yeah, that's my, yeah.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote. Alderman Steelman? Alderman Kinderleiter?
Yes.
Alderman Nash? Yes. Alderman James? Yes. Next item on the agenda is going to be the consent agenda. I need a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote. Alderman Steelman? Alderman Kinderleiter?
Yes.
Alderman James? Yes. Alderman Nash?
Yes.
Next item up is under reports of city officials, boards, and committees. Mr. Walden, you're up.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the Board of Aldermen. You may have remembered some meetings back, I mentioned we were queued up to work with Missouri S&T project management class regarding some community projects. They got started before things kind of shut down across the planet. They continued to work on the projects. They worked with community members on the various projects at a distance. They were able to get one or two in-person meetings before S&T kind of switched gears. They ended up finishing their class at a distance. They are wrapping that up, and so we expect their project reports by the end of next week, and we'll find some public way to make those accessible and to follow up on those. We had some good projects this semester and look forward to seeing those reports. We also have confirmed with our sanitation contractor, WCA, for citywide cleanup will be the weeks of May 4th to the 8th and May 11th to the 15th. That will be on your regular trash day. That will not be affected by any of the COVID-19 or the social distancing issues. Again, we did cancel the city-wide yard sale with hosting spots behind the admin building, but this cleanup will proceed. That's all up to WCA and doesn't present any issues with the social distancing. We're able to send out the April bills and are working on a more detailed update that we hope to have out tomorrow or soon thereafter this week. Just a couple things I would say in advance of that. We do expect to have the May bills out in a timely manner, and from then forward be able to resume the regular monthly billing cycles. And I know we've had some businesses in town that have applied for the assistance through SBA with assistance made available for small businesses related to COVID-19. There's a utility component of that where a certain percentage of their funds has to be committed towards utilities. And so if you're a Salem utility customer and have applied for that, please contact our utility office at 729-4117, and we will work with you one-on-one to get you the documentation you need to qualify for those funds. It's not it's something that we have the information to do, and we can help you with the utility aspect of that. We've had a couple of inquiries already, and we're glad to respond to those that may have need of that. Then a couple other things. I'm going to defer some of my time to Public Works for the NovaChip packet that you've got in front of you. But the records management policy is something that I had sent information out on, as well as I've got some hard copies for you. I don't know that with our codification of our city ordinances that our prior policy transferred. So I would ask after this meeting over the next couple of weeks, if you could forward feedback on your questions or suggestions to myself, Mary, or Attorney Weber, and we will try to get some consensus on that to present to you for a formal consideration at the next meeting. And the next item is feedback on branding logo. We have initiated, along with the chamber and the county, branding and website update. And some of you may have gotten surveys or invitations to information about that. I've passed out a copy of what the group that's offered feedback thus far has indicated their preferences as far as general theme. This isn't a finished product. This is still a work in process. But after this meeting, over the course of the next 2 or 3 days, if you could give Sally or I feedback regarding your preference and suggestions on colors and so forth. If you're familiar with the State Department of Tourism marketing, they have a palette, kind of like a flower petal that they use with natural colors. This kind of keys off of that. But another aspect of colors is we wanted a versatile graphic that, you know, could be used for tourism marketing, could be used for the city, could be used for the county, could be used for the Chamber of Commerce. And so what some organizations have done is played off of the colors towards that end. So a similar theme, but, you know, either using colors to, you know, make the distinctions, or in these examples you see, you know, actual text, Chamber of Commerce and so forth. I took the liberty of showing you just on like one of our trucks what the image could look like. On the back side of that, you see one of our older trucks with the current logo, and then what it might look like with the new logo. But implementing this would come back to you all for if there was expense related to putting graphics on the vehicles or new signage and so forth. You all would, that would be bid out, and you all would see that and have the opportunity to approve or not. There are not funds in this year's budget to, you know, to do a lot with this logo. The project needed to be done so we could proceed with the website update, which badly needs done. And so it would be my hope that as part of next year's discussion to have, you know, some consideration of you know, proceeding with implementing with a new logo. Then save the, unless there's questions, would defer to a prior agenda item on our NOAA chip list. Mark's worked with Gary Glenn from our street department on prioritizing for your request the streets and what actions to take, and you have the dollar amounts as well. Mark, if you don't mind, I might ask you to kind of walk them through what they're looking at.
If you look at the one on the streets for NOAA chip, Alderman James asked me if we would prioritize those. You will notice Ellis Street and Acuff Street is also on the list for NOAA chip. The NOAA chip, Gary done for me before this one. After looking at it, he said we can NOAA chip Ellis Street and Acuff. But what we done, we prioritized those, kind of got crazy with the crayons, and kind of color-coded everything so that you can see what streets are to be done and how they are prioritized. On the chip and seal, I didn't prioritize those. I just wanted you to get an idea of the amount of streets that we can NOAA chip versus the amount of streets that we can chip and seal. Bear in mind now, a lot of those roads we still can't NOAA chip because we don't have good enough base yet. So we can't do NOAA chip onto our base that's good enough. So we're forced to do chip and seal for our vehicle streets. The NOAA chip, I asked Gary how it was working. He's talked to the company and they're predicted, we could, depending on traffic that you got on those trees, we could get 15 to 20 years out of it. You get 5 to 7 out of the chickens. And of course, with the figures that you're looking at here, too, I don't have to. You know, we were looking at some additional monies to be put in the budget. You know, we're kind of pushing stuff towards the end of the year. Maybe we can take the monies from this year and the budget for next year, put together and do quite a few of these streets. But if you notice, the Park Street project is the #1 priority.
Thank you.
Did we differentiate between, like, are these 7 streets the only ones that are prepared to handle the chip right now?
Yes.
Okay. Like the other ones, all the other ones for sure need another coat of chip and seal.
The person that runs the Nova Chip company, he had planned on coming down. But with things are right now, he can't. So later on in the year, he will come down and go over streets with Gary. Maybe he can come up with another list first next year that we can possibly do Nova Chip on next year. But as of this year, this is the ones that, and we might get a little better price. We're not sure. The more you do, the cheaper it is. And Ellis Street and Aco Street was not on the original bid, so we don't know if there's enough there to offset it to get a little cheaper bid. We're going to try it and see what happens.
Some roads or two are the same.
Yeah, because he done the one for the chip and seal first for me. So if you go through those, I think you're going to notice 2 streets are on both lists. They're a little short, they're not very long. So it won't affect the price that much.
What was the total amount we had budgeted for?
We had budgeted 200,000 this fiscal year, and that's out of the special street fund, so that's money that can't be used for other departments or other areas. And so if you're, I think what Mark and Gary would recommend is that, given the time of year and to take advantage to get some better pricing, that we go ahead and just plan on budgeting 400,000 in next year's budget, and not do anything this year, but include those funds to get a better price to stretch it further. That we could do more with 1 400,000 shot than 2 200,000 shots. You know, given the time of year, it would, you know, if we go out, get firm bids and brought those back to you, you know, we can't spend next year's money till we have an approved budget, but if that's in June, you could come back, and if you awarded that, you know, contract, we could get on the schedule and get started, you know, as soon as we could after that.
We had a small window where Gary rented the machine to fill cracks, so they went down a lot of those in that small window. So a lot of the streets that we want to do, they've been see.
Ray, could that be talked and discussed ahead of time about if we take the 400 over the 200 and we get more streets done, or is that what you was saying?
Yes.
Did all the chip and seal plus the Park Street Nova chip is still 43,000 each.
That's if we chip and seal everything except Park Street or something.
There's all this package plus optional.
Now, you could consider a budget adjustment this fiscal year, since it's special street, if money's in there, I mean, you could pull the trigger, you know, on the whole thing sooner. You wouldn't have to wait for next year's budget if you wanted to do that. You know, that money comes in during the year, you know, so it's not like July 1, all of a sudden, you know, there's a, right, Mary, it's not like there's a ton goes in there. I think we've got enough in there to, we can handle these two right now.
say that I wanna see any street that could have another chip and seal on it. That's how I feel right now.
Oh, that's, I agree.
So, I mean,
That's,
I guess I'm trying to understand for sure what everything, are you,
I'm just saying, if we, let's try to get closer to 10,000.
Right now,
Are you-
Special Street has about 486,000 in it.
and that money can only be used.
Let's see what it is. These three projects, first three. Now, I noticed between bids that Road Street Third to Center, 7305, but over here in Melvin Chip, it's so 850. So we're talking about about a 30% increase, 20,000 versus 7. No, it's not 35. More than that. 60%.
I'd like to see the number used as much as possible, because I've had a little experience with the chip and seal, and it's not good.
well, my thing is, I understand it's twice the cost, but it lasts over twice as long as a later chip and seal, so.
Bang for your dollar, which is,
But we don't wanna split these projects up if we, right, because it may be cheaper if they come to do one lump amount of street.
The more yards or double stickers that you use, the less the cost. I know it costs you more in the end, but you get more bang for your buck, I guess.
Mark, if we had a budget adjustment for them to look at and a firm bid, you know, with everything listed out, if that was approved at the next meeting, would that be soon enough for the contractor to get scheduled, to get far enough along before we could have it done, or sufficiently done to pay it by the end of June?
Gary thought probably late June, late May, early June, we could have them here if we wanted that quick. With everything that's going on right now, their bids have not been coming in like they normally would. So Gary's thinking the sooner we get a bid in, you know, the sooner they can start looking for us. But they said they figured before long their projects are gonna start, people start coming.
Roughly 260. If we do the first three, and take off those two off this project.
Well, will that price stay the same then?
I think we need to do all of these at one time, so
that
that
price
it's
is
less
before-
per square yard.
Yeah.
We make it a better deal if we do it all at one time.
If we did a budget adjustment and included something that we would maybe budget next year, and then not pull so much next year, we can get it all for kids to actually get things started. instead of having to- That's my fear. My fear is you wait and then when we finally can order everything and get on the schedule, what else is gonna happen? You know, like that's just what it just seems like there's always gonna be something, you know, going on, so. Get the schedule and get work going.
Well, how about if we work on a proposed budget adjustment for the extent of the list you're comfortable with, and we'll bring back an agreement, and it will reflect, you know, payments based on completion. And so we've approved the scope of work. We have the funds to pay for it, to get it all done before June, but we're not gonna pay for stuff before it's completed. If they don't get the completed scope done by the end of June, then we would deal with that in next year's budget. The funds don't go away. It would just take, they might need longer than June to finish the work, but at least we could get on the schedule, get the commitment, and we have the funds.
Well, you know, the price of oil is going down too, so there's lots to consider. This stuff is oil. It may
Is that-
get dirt cheap here, you don't know. We're just gonna have to figure something out and go with it. And maybe the more you can talk to them, the more we can try to jam it together. I wanna go with the best deal for the buck. And I don't like chip and seal, and if any of you don't ain't familiar with chip and seal, get out and ride on some of these roads that's near town. They're waste, they're not much better than the gravel road. I think Mark has one part of it, don't you?
They're not too bad unless you get truck traffic on truck traffic.
And then comparing the street, that's what they
Design for it.
We don't have to decide this tonight, we can get it together and come back and do some final figuring, right?
Well,
What
that
do you need?
begins that the sooner we get,
Can we just direct Mark?
the sooner we know what we can do, we can go ahead and get on the list.
Which I think is, Ray's plan sounds good, right? That gets us scheduled as soon as possible with them.
They can bring
To get
a proposal.
started.
Would bring that back at the next meeting,
Yeah.
you know, a budget, proposed budget adjustment and a contract listing specific streets for which kind of treatment.
And I'd like to get every street that can have it
I can live with that.
on there, but.
The bids were on the last agenda, but you wanted to see this list, so, nothing can be done until we know what streets you want done and contracts for the next meeting, and a budget adjustment for the next, all done sometime.
So if I understand y'all correctly, you're wanting us to take this list of streets, call west, asphalt, tell them these are the ones we want, and the square yards are already figured, have them do a contract based on these 7 streets down, right? We can play right.
Lisa, you said that, well, I didn't know, did you say that there are some that they were gonna assess to see if they could take no chip, or?
But he won't be down here for a while. Not till after, I don't look for him to get to come down here until after, well, it will be July or August. My concern is, if we could get it done while the machine's here, then we could get them done, but he leaves and comes back, and we'll try to pay to get everybody back here.
At the next meeting, we need to make a decision, right?
Basically, yes.
We kind of need to, we need to make a decision on what we're presenting to them tonight, right, so that we can have it ready for the next meeting.
Do they need to vote on that, or can we, is that just a?
Well, you can make a proposal of what you want, and to propose to them to do, correct?
I think we just need your feedback on what we want included in the agreement.
Do you just want us to, you want to have Gary call in and say, we need a bid based on this amount of square yards, it's on this
I
list.
think that's what you were talking about before.
And that's all 7 of the streets, is that what y'all want?
There are some other streets that may possibly be able to handle
Right.
it, but
If there's
don't,
difference in
we don't have anyone from there.
I would recommend we quote unquote.
Well, when we actually found out, because there's a breakdown, he has 2 or 3 breakdowns, and depending on how many square yards you buy, it gets cheaper, but also, like you said, with the oil prices, we may get a little better price. A little better price on that.
So if we're planning on using 200,000 out of this year's budget and 200,000 out of next year's budget, would there not be some additional streets that we would, if we just did the 200,000 this year, when we go back into budget, would there not be more streets that we propose to know the chip for that other 200,000 besides what's on this list?
Yes, but this is, he wanted to prioritize a set of streets that we have right now that we knew we could do. These are ones we know we can do. The person with West Asphalt comes down and he looks at our streets, and he gives us, yeah, you can do this one, or, you know.
He's the one you're saying can't come until after we would want this started already.
I'm afraid so.
Is that-
Now, if we call him and say, hey, we need this, and if there's a possibility that you could come down, while you all are, no, I hate to say it that way. Is there the chance that you could come down as soon as possible to look at the rest of our streets to see if any more of them are eligible for membership? We could do that, and let him know that these are the ones that we are gonna do, we want this many square yards.
I would like definitely know who do what.
Because he's not gonna care, he's not gonna care about these streets, he wants to know how many square yards we do.
Plain as mud.
Just see if we can make it.
Yep, I can.
Otherwise, I would say go move forward with getting, the amount for those 7 streets.
And that might be a pretty good decision.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying,
That's
yeah,
what I'm thinking.
we mean business, we wanna do it, so.
So the special street fund, the revenue that comes into that account, what's the source of that? Remind me again.
Gas tax, vehicle sales tax, and fee increase, vehicle fee increase, and I'd have to review what that means again. I can never remember what that means, but it's all from the state. And then it's based on how many miles of streets we have, what we get.
So is there expectations of shortfall?
Pre-COVID, it was tracking pretty close to budget. There's a little bit of a lag from activity to the tax proceeds. So, it could dry up next year, or we might not get near the new money next year as what we got in this year into that fund. And we could take a closer look at that before the next meeting.
If we get a projection or something,
Sure.
someone surely has to put something together.
Yeah. Do that.
Numbers on sales.
Yeah, if you're sitting on what you're going to have for a while, you'll want to think long and hard how you use it.
I think we're all in agreement with what we're talking about, right?
Yeah, I think so. It's just I want to make sure we're getting the best price.
I have one question, Ray. What dates was that again on the cleanup?
The weeks of May 4th to the 8th, and then May 11th to the 15th. Be the first 2 full weeks of May on your regular trash day.
May to 11th, right?
And they'll do some advertising, and we'll try to reinforce that.
The citywide yard sale was originally the first and second, is that correct?
It's first Saturday in May traditionally. And some people start theirs on Friday, but when we rented the lots, we did it on the first Saturday in May.
I've had people ask about that, want to still do things, and, at their home, let's say.
They can. They just have to practice you can have 10 people in the 6.
Any other discussion for Mr. Baldwin?
Well, there's one thing that I think we've all had an email or two today. There's gonna be a lot of questions asked about the electric, and I hope we can do some answering tomorrow.
I don't think we'll have responses to take care of that, Alderman Nash.
That's all I have.
Anything further? All right, we'll move on to introduction and reading of bills. Ms. Apple, could you introduce bill number 3446, please?
Bill number 3446, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to act as representative for the city of Salem, Missouri, and executing a tower lease agreement between the city of Salem and Wave Internet Technologies LLC, allowing for the installation of a wireless broadband access point with related equipment of a designated portion of the city of Salem's water tower located at Tower and Condrey Street, effective the first day of February 2020 for a period of 1 year. Be it ordained by the Board of Aldermen of the city of Salem, Missouri as follows. Section 1, that the Board of Aldermen of the City of Salem, Missouri give authorization to the mayor to execute a tower lease agreement on behalf of the City of Salem, Missouri with Wave Internet Technologies LLC for the installation of a wireless broadband access point with related equipment on the City of Salem's water tower located at Tower and Condrey Street, effective the first day of February 2020 for a period of 1 year, and be given the first opportunity to release at the end of the lease term. Section 2, the fee to be paid by Wave Internet Technologies LLC to the City of Salem, Missouri is $100 a month, with payment to be made in quarterly installments in advance as described in the agreement described in Attachment A. Section 3, all ordinances and parts of ordinances in conflict herewith are to the extent of such conflict repealed. Section 4, this ordinance shall be in full force and effect from and after the date of its passage and approval. Mayor, would you like it read a second time by caption only, or?
Caption.
Bill number 3446, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to act as representative for the City of Salem, Missouri in executing a tower lease agreement between the City of Salem and Wave Internet Technologies LLC, allowing for the installation of a wireless broadband access point with the related equipment on a designated portion of the City of Salem's water tower located at Tower and Condrey Street, effective the first day of February 2020 for a period of 1 year, passed by the Board of Aldermen of the City of Salem, Missouri, and approved by the mayor this 20th day of April 2020.
Thank you. Do we have a motion on bill number 3446?
Make a motion to accept bill number 3446 as read.
Motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
How long is the fee been $100?
Since the beginning, hasn't it, since 2015? I think he's paid $100, and then he pays it all at one time. He doesn't do the quarterly payments.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote. Alderman Jones?
Yes.
Alderman Steelman? Alderman Nash?
Yes.
Alderman Miller?
Yes.
Ms. Happel, bill number 3447, please.
Bill number 3447, an ordinance to authorize the mayor to sign any and all documents to proceed with the purchase and installation of a Razwaz pump station and associated appurtenances, I think. Whereas the Razwaz pump station replacement was to be in the wastewater treatment facility WWTF Phase 2 improvement project, but due to the current pump station not performing correctly and the importance of the pump station to the treatment process, the Board of Aldermen feel it necessary to make the improvement now during the wastewater treatment facility WWTF Phase 1B improvement project. Now therefore be it ordained by the Board of Aldermen of the City of Salem, Missouri as follows. Section 1, the Board of Aldermen approves Smith & Edwards Construction, their current contractor for the City of Salem, Missouri WWTF Phase 1B improvement project to install the pump station and associated appurtenances, sorry, outlined in Attachment A, Exhibit A, request for interpretation incorporated herein for $236,146.52. Section 2, the Board of Aldermen approves CM Archer Group PC for engineering services on the Razwaz pump station replacement outlined in Attachment A, memorandum for $54,728. Section 3, the Board of Aldermen approved the recommendation from CM Archer Group PC, the purchase of the equipment from Municipal Equipment Company for the supply of Sulzer ABS pumps, a custom controls package and accessories as outlined in Attachment A, Exhibit B proposals for $33,190 and an additional pump for $6,225 if approved. Section 4, this ordinance shall be in full force and effect from and after the date of its passage and approval. Would you like the second reading by caption only or in full?
Caption.
Bill number 3447, an ordinance to authorize the mayor to sign any and all documents to proceed with the purchase and installation of the Razwaz pump station and associated appurtenances. I'm not sure, I don't know how to pronounce that. Passed by the Board of Aldermen of the City of Salem, Missouri, and approved by the mayor this 20th day of April 2020.
Thank you. Do we have a motion on bill number 3447?
I would like I heard through the grapevine today that, I guess it's proper to say that this thing just running on the wing of a prayer, and if it goes down, we're in big trouble. Is that true? Can we say? And we're in really big trouble if it goes down.
Yes.
And it's in very bad shape.
Yes.
And it would really cost us if it did. Okay. I'll make that motion then.
Motion, we have a second.
If we got the money.
Alderman Stillman, second. Any further discussion?
Yeah, Jeff Meadows, Connected. Jeff, appreciate you being with us again, in case there's question. We had, as we discussed last time, $480,000 placeholder in our certificates of participation funding, and with going out for bids on the equipment and with with engineering services and everything, it came in quite a bit less than that.
What's included in the engineering services?
Can you speak to that, Jeff?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. So in the engineering services, we have two items that were out of the scope of the original project that we added as we went along. So the first item, and this is in the second page of the memo that Ray had included in the agenda. The first item was, once we got into the construction and drained the ditches and were able to inspect and better the existing rotors, we identified that the remaining rotors, with the exception of one, were in very, very poor shape and frankly, next to inoperable and providing very low DO transfer, and some of them were structurally unsound and getting ready to fall into the ditch. So we did some additional engineering and added the additional floating aerators, which were also scheduled to be in phase 2. That was the first item. The second item is the Raswas pump station design, which you're acting on tonight as well.
Does it include design and construction quality control?
Yes, sir.
What percentages of each?
So the design is probably, I don't have the hourly breakdown in front of me, I apologize, but the design is probably 75% of that number.
And I had forwarded Jeff the concern or wanted to make sure we didn't have additional engineering fees in phase 2 by breaking this off first and doing it now. And Jeff's assured me that the fees for phase 2 would reflect this. There wouldn't be duplication or additional fees related to this work. That it would be the same pulling it off now, or if we included it in the phase 2 scope. Is that correct, Jeff?
That's correct. I mean, this is just part of the phase 2 scope that would not have to be completed, so it'd be a straight deduction from the phase 2 scope.
Any other questions?
Is there going to be any project overlap that would have been a challenge with doing it now versus when it was planned, so that we don't have to reroute a pipe or redo the pump station in its entirety? That's my greatest concern, because once you do something before you're supposed to, always create a challenge.
Yeah, I understand your question. With this specific improvement, it's essentially a standalone individual item that was only included in phase 2 strictly to minimize the scope of phase 1 and push as much of the capital outlay as far down the road as we could. When we initially scoped phase 1, we knew it needed to be replaced. We knew it had diminishing capacity, and we knew that the wet well was too shallow. So we identified that as improvements that need to be accomplished. But at the time, the pump station was still operable. It's only since, just in the last couple of months, that we really truly identified how poor a shape that it's in. That it's declined further in that time frame. So that's what's accelerated to this point. So there's no rework, there's no scheduling impacts or anything of that nature with this particular facility.
If we were to do the project tonight and were to fail tomorrow, what would we do?
If you were going to approve it, and that means
No,
the project
we didn't
is
approve it.
moving.
If they don't approve it, Jeff, and it fails.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, then, first of all, you're gonna have to get a temporary pump in, a portable, likely diesel-fired pump, that is going to work in a temporary fashion. And then start this process tomorrow. If you don't start the permanent installation, the whole purpose of trying to go into this and do it within, as the scope had described in phase 2, is that if we try to put something in temporary today, and when I say temporary, I'm not talking about renting a portable pump. I'm talking about hodgepodging a control panel and getting some rebuilt pumps or something of that nature. Then you're going to be when we start phase 2 in a couple of years, then you're going to be pulling that equipment out and putting new in. So this is truly you would truly be spending money that you're going to be throwing away in a couple of years. The whole intent of this is to not be doing that. So we're doing, this will be phase 2 work, just accelerated a couple of years.
Raises come from certificates of participation.
Right. We had 480,000 available, and so this would be less than that. So that's either money that wouldn't have to be spent on other projects, or if you chose, you can do other utility-related work with that. The difference.
So are we taking anything off the table to do that?
No. The prior work on phase 1B is fully funded. AMI, everything we expect out of there is fully funded. The J72 extensions funded. Those are the projects that are covered.
Any other questions? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote. Alderman Nash?
Yes.
Alderman Steelman? Alderman James?
No.
Alderman Dingleback?
Yes.
Ms. Happel, resolution 7-2020, please.
Resolution number 7-2020, a resolution authorizing the mayor to sign a proposal between the city of Salem, Missouri and Dino-Magi Incorporated for drainage improvements at the Salem Little League Ballpark, 1100 West Rolla Road. Whereas the Board of Aldermen of the City of Salem, Missouri desire to enter into a proposed agreement with Donald Magi Incorporated for drainage improvements to divert water runoff away from the Little League fields to the creek. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Aldermen of the City of Salem, Missouri as follows. Section 1, the mayor is hereby authorized to sign the proposed agreement on behalf of the City of Salem, Missouri for the drainage improvements and to pay Donald Magi Incorporated up to $23,500 for the proposed improvements as described in Attachment A. Section 2, this resolution shall be in full force and effect from and after the date of its passage and approval, passed by the Board of Aldermen of the City of Salem, Missouri, and approved by the mayor this 20th day of April 2020.
Thank you. We have a motion on resolution 7-2020.
Make a motion we approve resolution number 7, 2020.
And a second.
I'll second.
And a second, any discussion?
I could add some background. We've had issues unrelated to the gym there, just with the hard surface of the back parking lot of flooding or with drainage on some of the ball fields. And so the gym doesn't necessarily change that factor. You're trading a hard surface of the parking lot that used to be on the north side of the armory with the hard surface of roof. So similar drainage issues. And while we had Archer doing the engineering for the TAP sidewalk project, I asked one of their engineers if they could look at a remedy for that drainage problem. And in coordinating with discussion with Don Smith, and Stan might have been in some of that from the park board, believe the installation of this drainage system will alleviate the problem. And so the materials are comparable in cost of what we have bid out before. The contractor being proposed is who's already there doing the sidewalk construction project. It would be my recommendation, if you approve this, that we do it out of the capital improvement sales tax fund. With the COVID-19 hammering of our Parks and Rec programs, that's presented a budget issue that we'll get into as we get with budget discussions. And we have funds available in the capital improvement sales tax fund to cover this expense. If you all would want, I could bring either a budget adjustment for additional funding to cover this, or we could revisit the remaining projects that we had budgeted out of capital improvement and decrease the planned work to cover this. It would not be an undue burden either way, but that would be whichever way you all would want to go on that. But I think Parks and Rec is going to need some help going into next year's budget, and we'll address that as we get into the budget discussion. And the work needs to be done for the drainage, so we don't have water pooling, so we can better take care of the fields. It's just that the expense is what it is to address it. And so that would be my recommendation. And again, I would be glad to cover that through, we could look at the projects next meeting and considering covering it, or again, there's funds for what we had budgeted to do out of capital improvement and to add this to the list. We could do whichever way you wanted to do it.
I think it'd be good to look at the list, even if we do end up just adding it to the list.
Okay.
I think it'd be good to just look at it and see what we can maybe do about this year with circumstances being what they are. We might not choose to do that, but I think it'd be good to just
Sure.
go forward and go over it.
We'll plan on it.
Is there any possibility that our men could do part of this?
I asked Mark about that, Alderman Nash, really, since the setup it would take, and with Magi being over there already working on the sidewalk, we would be on top of each other to get this done in a time frame when we hope our fields are back open for business, you know, with social distancing and people being able to use the fields. We think, Magi, that this would be the recommended approach to get it knocked out. The labor portion of that total cost is, you know, under $5,000. And, you know, our guys' time is opportunity cost. And so, ask Mark if he'd want to add to that, but I did discuss that with Mark, the prospect of our guys doing it. But we really think this is the best use of resources to get it done in a timely manner.
Just looking to save money any way we can.
I know Magi is already there, but should we not have other quotes?
Again, the equipment, or the materials is matching what we could do competitively. If we also bid out the labor, then they will probably need to be done with TAP by the time we would get that done. But we could certainly do that.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote. Alderman Stillman? Alderman Hinderleiter?
Yes.
Alderman Nash?
Yes, it is so.
Alderman James?
$5,000.
All right, this time there is, we have no new and miscellaneous business, so I need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Do we have a second? Second. All in favor, rise and go forward. Thank you very much.